fear the unknown. This is about the nature of who we are as souls, climbing the ladder of success or of destruction of who we are, sometimes, correct? Brenda has been known to do much work that is for the relationships that she serves in the moment. But this is more about our own hearts and what we often tell ourselves that we need to do. We need to address the fears of the unknown. And what the unknown often is more about who we are rather than who we are not, or who we are working with, or who we are not, or some aspect of ourselves that we have denied for a long time that is becoming more illustrious in our notions, perhaps. When we talk about the nature of the destruction of self, which is what some people fear when they go to this place of, I'm on a path of rediscovery of who I am, it can often mean that there are aspects of ourselves from a soul level we're not necessarily wanting to work through. And this is where Brenda was for a long time. I don't want to work through a painful event in my past to the point of destruction of my enjoyment here in this moment. This is where I was. The unknown aspect of who I was something that I discarded long ago. The carefree, loving vision, enjoying my soul, doing amazing work. And what held me back was a painful memory of a long ago love that I never did deny was of love in essence, but was definitely more of a field of dreams. So you see, when people come to me and they say, I'm afraid of connecting with loved ones from my past, I don't know what they're going to say, or I don't know what they're going to experience with me, or I don't know who I am without them. That's what some people work with. And they have the fear of freedom from others. That's where Brenda is in her heart. She's like, the codependence that we often have can scare the crap out of us. It can literally be a stepping stone into the painful recovery of our path forward that sets us free to be with others who are more in alignment with who we really are, from a place of enjoyment, not just the idea that we all have friends and loved ones that we love and adore, and then some friends come and go, and some relationships are here and then they're not. But it doesn't mean that all those relationships were meant to be. And when we say that, this is why people who often go through these transition periods often find other loves that are more suited for them. They want to be carefree and loving, but the others around them are holding them back. This is where a lot of people will go thinking that somehow they're betraying their hearts by saying that. But in essence, it really truly can be those kinds of situations where my pain of discovery of who I am in constriction, perhaps, right? I'm constricted in my mind with certain souls. I won't let loose the family trees or the pain moments of my own soul in essence on the screen for everyone to see the misery that I called out to over and over again as I was discovering my painful moments of the past. This is where many of us lie. But the unknown is truly known in the majority of the cases. We just don't want to see it in ourselves. We don't want to see the anger that we held in. We don't want to see the pain that we denied ourselves to feel, because it might mean that we needed to feel more of it in order to release it. This is what some people are saying. They're saying, I didn't completely feel the pain in the moment I let it go. I told myself that I was healed completely, is where a lot of people are. And then what happens is when you're on this path, your soul will come back and it will let you know, okay, here's another guide for you to help you rediscover yourselves from a different place of understanding. And this is what we want people to understand, that there is a lot of information out there from the psychological understanding that is more of a hindrance than of help. Because if it's saying that the only way to do this work is to keep digging into the past, they have lost the creativity of the present moment. They have lost the beauty of the future seeds that need to be watered. If we are not planting the seeds in the present, we don't have seeds to water. And this is where Brenda was. She was so afraid of creating from her past, in essence, because it was something that was delved into so deeply that it tore her apart. It shred her to bits, is where others would say it. And when she says that, it was a self-inflicted wounding. She didn't come across someone who hurt her body. It was a self-inflicted wound, and she had to take responsibility for that aspect of it, even though as a teenager, it was placed upon her that from the psychological understanding, they know that the majesty was in the moment. We know what that was, Brenda, is where others are. But what we soon discover is that the labels that people put upon me were just as horrible as the labels that were put upon the other person. Okay, this is the dynamics of the female atrophy that we're about to experience. Many females on this plane are fearful of who they are, is what many men would say, and at the same time they place the degradation labels upon them so easily, so fast, without truly understanding the freedom of being bold in the bedroom. Perhaps we're going to get to the nitty-gritty. Others say, oh, that's a beautiful place. Others say, no, that is actually evil. Do you know how many people are working with the labels of their loved ones based on the conditioning in which they were brought up? And so what happens is when you go through the nature of the love of all, you have to adore their visions, correct? No, that is for their soul to do that work. And so Brenda was bringing in those souls from a place of where they were at one moment, rather than the freedom of the moment that said, yes, we created together and now we're able to set this soul alignment free. We don't need to be with other people in our hearts always, right? That's what others are saying. Others are saying, I'm in my mind, I love myself, and they have some problems. And that's where Brenda was. She looks around the world and she says, yeah, there are issues that we're working with. And others are saying, oh, don't focus on the issues, focus on the past as a problem to solve. That's what most people are talking about. Versus, how about we focus on the present moment and what's going on in the here and the now? So the thing is that if you are being brought into a present moment with your soul and they bring up a past moment and it hurts, that means that that has not been cleared out enough. Or at least that it's not as freeing as we thought it would be. Many people don't want to see the past as anything other than a distorted vision, because in essence it is. We don't remember it as it was, and that cannot be denied no matter how well your memory is. And some people will say my trauma forced it in as a moment by moment expression, but it is still not expressed as it. And so what we're saying is those souls that are of the I'm of a trauma, in essence, would also start to say, I want to move forward at some point in time to free myself from the memories of what was or wasn't my fault. Okay, Brenda had that vision placed upon her from herself for years. It was my fault. And that other soul also said in his wisdom, I know it's your fault. Right? No, he never said that vision. It was an understanding from the soul level how we come together and we say, this is what was created and this is how it is healed. We agree to disagree on certain terms of endearment, and we agree to disagree about the lives that we want to leave behind. Many are saying, I want to leave behind the past and move forward to a pleasant expression. Brenda has been doing that vision. And yet, there are some souls in her vision who she still creates with on the mind, right? It's in the mind, the thoughts. But her soul gives her those wisdoms, thinking it is somehow going to free her from the conditioning of, yeah, it's a good thing that we're still in this place of discovery of who we are as souls of love, when those souls are still battling themselves within their minds. Brenda doesn't battle your demons for you, is what she says. Okay? Because in essence, this is the nature of letting go. Okay? Letting go of those pain points that others say, I'm going to put my burdens upon you for you to deal with. This is the projection of pain onto others. But it doesn't mean that it's not a one-way road. Sometimes people go on the path of discovery by themselves, and this is why Brenda is so strong in it. Because she says, I understand what it's like to do my own work. Okay? And sometimes you want to go along that path with someone else who says, yeah, I get it. I remember being happy and free and clear of all the pain of it. What I did was I opened up Pandora's box. And so Brenda had to deal with Pandora's box. She opened up Pandora's box. And really, truly, it was a decision that she was even warned against by her soul, saying, that's not going to be a pleasant experience for us. I wouldn't go that path. And she chose to do it anyway. Okay, this is why we also want ourselves to really honor the nature of when our souls are saying, this isn't going to be a painful process, but it's not going to be the most illuminating for others as well. So when we talk about the nature of the unknown, that is the kind of experience that you may have. You may have that experience on a soul level of why you chose to create with certain people in the ways in which you did. It's a highlighting of aspects of ourselves that we come to deny most often, right? And other people will say, well, that means you're being a blank. Brenda's like, please let me know what behavior I participated in that is more helpful to me than calling me a name. Because I can't do anything about a label. What I can do is I can work on the behaviors in which I either created with or participated with others in, and what did those show me about me? Now, when I look to others, I don't look at everyone else and say that's exactly what I would do. What I would say is I understand based on where they are, where their lives are, what they've participated in, the things that they've experienced, and the soul level understanding would say they're right where they're supposed to be, right? Not exactly. It means that we have the free will and the soul sovereignty to choose to participate with certain souls or not. Okay? And our souls are saying some of us don't have those options. Those are definite soul-searching moments that many are having, because many are saying, I want to free myself from my family tree, right? How many people want to free themselves from the family tree? Or it's more like, I can appreciate the experiences my family tree has, but I'm not looking to them for their wisdom for how I am to be. That's Brenda. What I do is I understand the love and adoration that each of us had for one another up to a certain point, and then we can say, and now it's time for this birdie to fly free from the nest. We come into that experience that our families are our sources of wisdom in many ways, but they don't have the whole enchilada, and they will know that. Anyone who is on this plane who has ever done the work of, I love my family too, does not mean that they know what is best for you in every moment of every breath. You're valued as soul. What you can get is kind words of wisdom from their souls, allowing you to see them as cherished for who they are in their ways as well, based on the ideas of we are all connecting in this vision of love of all, or the unity consciousness, which is basically a more detached vision that Brenda actually creates from most often, and is actually a more loving way for a lot of people to work in this world, where we say, I don't have to tell everyone that I love you in order to feel you as another soul, see you as a valuable asset to our hearts, right? It's not about an asset. It's about when we come into the vision of love of all, it means that we appreciate them for who they are most often, or what they are allowing us to see about ourselves or about them, and what that means for us. It could be it allows us to see more of who we are from a different plane. Like, I want to be part of the angel movement. That's where some people go. People say, I want to be part of angels. And so they will look into the vision of what an angel truly is and feel like, is that something I want to aspire to? But they are not there yet. Okay, that's what people keep saying. They keep saying they're not there yet. And others are saying, oh, well, Brenda assumes she's in the vision of love always. She's already felt that vision before. She knows how high that vision can go. Okay, and it's a high vision when it comes to vibrations of angels and demons. Those are also those visions that got portrayed as less than, but they vibrate out of it very fast because no one really truly wants to vibrate in the vision of evil or whatnot. And we've already discussed that before. What people are doing is they are placing their projections of evil on others and hoping that it sticks. These are those mantras, perhaps, that others who are of what? Witchcraft might say is not the best. You find out very fast when you open up to the level of understanding that Brenda has, that placing projections of evil onto others is not the best thing to do or say, for the most part. But what we understand as souls is that's usually a sign that there's some disparity in vision, the communication is not open, the line of attack has been there for Brenda in the past, and she's had some moments of it recently based on where she was with the Trump soul even. But it has nothing to do with his personal vision or his soul. It's like the after effects of so much negativity that others are placing on each other based on those visions of old. And what we would say is, in our hearts, we can see the wisdom he is offering us only in its limited view, because he is not showing us who he really is. He's showing us aspects, and the other parts are well hidden, destroyed by many who would say compassion is not deserved, when his soul was saying, I was kind to her always. He's always been the kind soul in essence with her, because he knows that she values his wisdom for everybody who has ever thought about the nature of this is showing us where we need more work on ourselves, our families, and our friends, right? We're all trying to convince everybody that they need to switch sides or to be something other than who they are. And this is why Brenda is more illustrious in her vision than most. Because to be honest, most of us operate in the idea of holding ourselves very close to our hearts when it comes to being vulnerable or being known. And so when we talk about the unknown with everybody else, it means that we're often discovering ourselves through others. And that can be a vulnerable place to be if you're on the soul level, right? Because it's not well known how to handle those hearts that are not ready to be seen for who they are here. And that's where a lot of people are. They don't want to be known here. They want to be secretive, only in the idea that it means I'm open to attack. If I put my vulnerabilities out there on the screen, what does that say to you? Does it say that you yourself are going to have the same kinds of expressions? Or does it show you that you yourself need to be maybe a little bit more unknown to some people. Some people don't like knowing what everyone is experiencing on the soul level. And it's because they create a lot of disparity in vision. Sometimes Brenda's had her moments of it. She's not there to tell people how to avoid being who they are. Let's put it that way. Okay, you can be as freewheeling and loving and caring as you want. But what happens is there are personalities at play here on this plane that others indeed don't necessarily understand why they are the way they are, or why they portray themselves the way they are, or why they heart themselves the way they do. Okay? We love who we are. We set ourselves free from the conditioning of the plane that says that we all need to be and act the same way. That's where Brenda is with a lot of her friends and family. We love each other for being separate and unique. It doesn't mean that we don't unite in the vision that we're all one soul at some point in time, apparently, which is where a lot of people go. It depends on your point of view. We don't want to push that vision forward for a lot of souls who are not ready to accept or deal with the unification of who we are, because that's the unity consciousness, is that we're all creating this together. It doesn't mean that we all experience each other as they do. It means that there's a collective vision of love that comes together because it's a coalescence of our hearts that feels so good when we reach it. So we want you to think about that idea of being curious, wise, and soulful. And what that means is curiosity killed the cat is one way that someone would degrade the vision. But to be curious doesn't mean you have to agree. It means to go in and understand that they themselves are their own soul working through various issues, various life experiences, various onerous messages. Brenda's had to deal with some messaging that wasn't so pleasant. And it's because she was putting out messaging that wasn't so pleasant as well. She's very much in the fight or flight, is what some people would say. And she has her moments of it, but she knows how to handle those visions very well. She's had to caretake her heart through some strong, painful souls who were playing with the devil in their minds. Let's put it that way. Seriously, thinking they were going to try to attack someone through the field of vision of soul because they themselves were afraid of who she was. And this is what Brenda got told. Many people are not afraid of you in actuality. They are more afraid of who they themselves are without the conditioning in which they grab onto and say, this is the way to be for me, whether or not you agree with me or not. And that's what Brenda understands. She understands that everyone has their own level of understanding or conditioning that we're working through. And to do what I do, you have to break free from the conditioning enough where you say, I love who I am, and I don't need to bring through those souls who were of my past, who had their own expression of love for me, but felt that they were denied the pleasure of our union at one point due to the nature of an expression of youth and adult. Okay, that was regarding that vision in the beginning of the video. And that doesn't mean that our souls did not gain wisdom from it, but that's the nature of why people are here saying, oh my God, you had to confront that on the soul level. It wasn't something that was pleasant, but it was more about the attacking of my own mind on why I opened up Pandora's box, rather than his vision or his family's vision of what that really meant. It meant it was a discovery of the unknown of who I was. But I was very well aware of it, and I was very well aware of where my curiosity about who I was and the setting aside of my own intuition to be deceived by an adult led me to that understanding that allowed me to be even more protective of children who are in various organizations, let's put it that way. And to see the strength in the lessons that we learn through some of those experiences. And I don't demean his soul as evil or as conniving or as like bad-hearted or anything, but it's a pain point of discovery that was not really needed because there was an understanding about my part and his part in that story. Because it's almost like a story rather than the reality now. And that's what we want people to start to think about, is to say, what stories am I replaying in my mind? And when you say it like that, you start to get an understanding about how people are starting to wisen up to why they say this is wisdom, of how to help others start to break free from that kind of conditioning that says that we have to go in and pretend that it is happening again. It isn't happening again. It may feel like it's happening again. It's a retelling of a story in essence. And then we can start to break free from that idea that it needed to be anything other than that at some point. We look upon ourselves and say, look at the beauty I am right now, right? And that's then the discovery of who we were. But what we want is the discovery of who we are right now. And when we do that, sometimes we've attached our identity to the past so much that the unknowing of who we are is what is scaring us. Am I a free, loving soul that loves to entertain people? Or am I bogged down in the witnessing of others' pain? Because that's where I am as well. I get bogged down in the witnessing of others' pain and the misery and the deceit and all of the arrogance that's going on about who's doing what and why. I want to make sure that everyone's free and clear that of the pain of the past as much as possible before they come into the vision of, I'm ready to unite with the loves of my heart. And that's what we want for everyone here. We want you to understand it's okay to be fearful of the unknown. That's normal. It's a normal safety mechanism, right? Others will claim, my intuition is telling me it's not true, or that it's okay. And others will say, you got to be brave and bold. It depends on the situation. We're not saying every fear is meant to be conquered. Brenda won't go swim with great whites just because she has a fear of meeting up with one. That's not the reality of the world. She could go into a cage. She's seen too many videos of those sharks making it in certain ways. And that's a known fear, and it's a good fear to have, by the way. But it's not about killing the sharks either. It's just, hey, be on the lookout. But she doesn't avoid going into the ocean to swim either, okay? But she's not out there chumming the waters. That's what a lot of us are trying to do. We're trying to bring up the fears that we don't need to, okay? But the unknown is more about the discovery of our love for who we are. That's where we're going. And when you say, what? The love of who we are? It's the love of who we are we're discovering. And that's the unknown. So we have to sit there and ask ourselves, what is it about myself that I love first and foremost? And is there anything I can say about my own hearts that they themselves love about who they are? This is why people feel good about people who are so strong in their self-confidence or their self-assurance, because they collide with some in some ways. Some people will say Brenda can be arrogant about certain aspects, but she's strong in the art of, it's the mastery of the mind. And soul level mastery is viewed as beyond most people's understanding, but she's made it there. She has some setbacks sometimes, but it's more about the mastery of her moment. And that will, oh man, do you want to be the mastery of your moment? It's true. You want to be the mastery of your moment. You're breathing, you're feeling good, you're loving who you are, you're awesome in this vision, right? And it's unknown. This moment is unknown. Wait a second. You just conquered another moment of unknown. How did it feel? I'm of goodness for all hearts. That's where a lot of people are who watch these kinds of videos. I'm of goodness of hearts. I believe in the eternal soul. I believe in the eternal vision of love. And that's where there's a stepping step for some, because some are saying they believe in the eternal sin. Okay, they're in that moment of sin. But Brenda is bypassing that vision in essence because she doesn't believe in that idea of putting a label on anything or anybody that is negative, that isn't more demonstrative of what that really means. Other people do have these books that tell them what is and what isn't, but usually they're very general in nature, and she's the queen of unwinding those kinds of topics where people say that's a sin, and she says, oh, based on what situation? Well, we have all these exceptions, right? Don't kill somebody unless you're in the military or police force, right? Or you wouldn't be a good Christian or a Catholic or whatever if you were in that vision, right? You would be assuming you're going to be going to what? Hell? Okay. That's not how it works, okay? Because what happens is your own soul is so beautiful in excusing death. But it's not about excusing death. It's about understanding the wisdom behind it. And many will start to understand that that is probably one of the biggest fears for Brenda is the fear of death. She's had her close calls with it in the past. She's also had the close calls with her mind, believe it or not, because of the paranoia effect that she had due to an experience her soul gave her based on the conditioning of the mindset of someone who actually was in that vision as a family member, okay, and who participated in the mental health field based on the diagnosis and the projections that others around her gave her, thinking she actually was not dealing with soul level understanding. Oh, she's got it all figured out. These souls that say that the messaging of others doesn't affect us is limited. We just limit the amount of inputs that we have when we're going through this process. And this is why Brenda is very kind in many ways, saying, I want you to make sure you have at least one person who loves and supports you and believes you in your heart when you say you are receiving messages from it's like a God soul or a love soul or something, because there are very many that are receiving messages that are beautiful and wise and loving, and there are others who are hearing things that are not so pleasant, but it has nothing to do with the evil aspects of life. It's more about things that were created either by themselves or with others, and it's coming back to them. Okay, it's not evil, it's just aspects of discovery of self most often. And we want people to start to understand that there is a reason why Brenda doesn't even deal in essence with a lot of the religious instruction or inspiration, because it holds keys for certain members and it holds values for others that they need. But in essence, there's a lot of subjective information in there that is getting thrown around left and right as good, bad, and whatnot. And others will say, I see in the beauty of it as wisdom of long ago. And others still see the wisdom in it. But in reality, she's more of the let's start anew. Let's hold our hearts and souls up to a beautiful place where we don't have to feel like we're less than from the beginning. Like we came here to experience ourselves. And this is what people are working for, realizing that there are many people who have already made it to that place. We don't have to wait until we cross over and leave our bodies in order for us to feel the strengths of superhuman powers. People are talking about it. Brenda is already healing her body and her mind in many ways. She has done the dealings of the devils, what her friend would say, because she was limited in her own expression of what she could imagine Brenda could do. Brenda had to take that on for her and her family and deal with that, which was not an actuality, but it was more like a thought form that they created by doing that kind of work in earnest. okay, as a Satan worshiper. Not Brenda, but a family member of a friend, okay? When we go to the nature of working with other souls, this is why Brenda is more illustrative of the love, excuse her, rather than the devil vision. How many people keep saying that over and over and over to themselves and saying that in a wise and loving way? Well, they have some expressions to work through when they cross over, and they realize that they did some things that they wish they hadn't, perhaps, but they gained the wisdom of it, right? This is why people say, oh my gosh, I can't imagine that you had to deal with something so bad or so evil. It wasn't evil, it was words. It was words and energy that didn't feel so good for me. But luckily, you have someone now who knows how to avoid getting stuck in someone else's vibration that did that vision. You say, I'm not worthy, right? That's where someone else was. That is someone else's lack of worth or self-worth. And it's not in the idea that they don't actually have worth. They just found the worth in the power and strength of that is what they thought. But most people who go to that are dealing with worth issues rather than highlighting themselves as beautiful for who they are. So a lot of people will look outside of themselves to those books of old and create with that, thinking it's somehow going to give them the worth that they are inherently denying themselves based on the books of old. Because the books of old are basically saying, you came here, you're bad, you're flawed inherently, and you have to overcome something in order to be worthy of someone else's love or adoration or whatnot. Okay, and so others will try to bypass the vision of what love really is and the nature of our hearts. And we say, no, it is not like that at all. Some people can choose to revel in the ill will or the doings of those kinds of deeds without even knowing. And this is what we want people to understand. There are people here who have conditions of the brain who are not aware of what they're doing. And so we're not going to label them evil when they absolutely are not even aware of the state in which they are participating in. She has someone she knows who has done that work as well. Okay? And it's a hard place for them when they cross over and they realize, I put myself in that conditioned state unaware of what was happening. Other people are able to come back from it. Others will stay there permanently throughout their experience on this plane in this moment. Others will rise out of it as soon as they cross over and they have a new perspective about the freedom to be creative in their endeavors. Okay, now, when others are trying to come through to spread fear, this is why Brenda says, I don't take that. I go in and say, what is the issue? If you're working with the unknown, instead of working at it from, let me be curious, some will say, I can already tell that's going to be a place I don't want to go. And so they stay away from it because Brenda just says, oh, it's just someone else's insecurities and fears most often being projected out onto others. That's true. Many who are in those visions are not aware of what's going on with the person, their lives, or what they've experienced. It's like a huge amount of pain for some people. And then there are those who are conditioned in those visions and feel like it's the way to be. And then they rise above it when they realize that, oh my gosh, this also has consequences for all of us. So that's why on the soul level, most are not in that vision at all of what that kind of vision is. They release that pain when they cross over. They don't sit in the pain and discomfort of who they were here. That's the nature of the limitations of this plane, but it's only there as a mental construct for the most part, rather than the reality. And this is why so many of us are able to bypass those realms that others are creating in that are not pleasant for us. And we say, why would I plant my seeds in someone else's realm when they're creating misery for themselves and others? Okay, that's why Brenda does this work for us, to say, I'm okay wherever I'm at. I've been through some of those realms that are not pleasant, and I know how to get my way out of them. I've done that work for a reason. It wasn't because I chose to. I didn't say, yay, let me do this. It was because those were the situations that I found myself in, unlucky in love as well. Okay? So, what that means is I found myself to be unlucky in love. And then I found myself having a major amount of love for more than one person. And what I did was about loving who I am, no matter those soul's decisions that I made. I love who I am. I don't hold myself to anyone else's standards based on books of old, especially. And I understand myself in the nature of who I am when I'm with myself and my own soul. I am embodied by my soul. I have reached that level of understanding, okay? And it really, truly is a raising your vibration to meet your soul halfway, okay? You want to raise yourself up before you go down the process of soul level understanding for others. First do it for yourself, then start to do it with others. That's the best thing you can do, because a lot of people are planting a lot of seeds of mischief as well. Okay? So with that, when it comes to the unknown and the fear, remember to focus on this moment and the next, and ask yourself, what is it that I'm afraid of really? Right? And that will allow you to start to see where you might be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, perhaps, and say to yourself, I'm free of the fear now because I've already done that step. I've already placed myself out there as vulnerable. This is like, for me, being vulnerable is more about saying to people, it's okay to be fearful. It's okay to be scared of the unknown. But it's also a place of understanding you have someone who's got your back. That's where my soul is. I've got your back. I won't let you go too far. My soul never lets me go too far in my vibration where I feel any lower level vibration that actually would do or hurt or anybody or anything, because that's not who I am. That's not who my soul is either. Okay, we've cleared out enough of the negativity to see the beauty of who we are and to see and understand, because that's her method. I understand that there's always more going on than what we see. I understand that there are many people creating with many different things, and they have those aspects attached to them, is what someone said. But truly, honestly, it is not an attachment. It is an understanding of our souls are within us and not outside of us. Okay? So that's why we want you all to understand you are worthy of who you are as soul in this moment, in this breath. And as Brenda says, we're going to wind this down now. Stay curious, wise, and soulful. Have a wonderful day.